All right, with me now is Jack Kingston, who is a former Republican congressman from Georgia, and Kevin Cate, who is a Democratic strategist. Good to see you both. All right, so Kevin, you first. You know, that wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement for John Kelly. It left the door open for a lot there. What do you suppose is likely to happen?
Yeah, you have to remember in these interviews, Frederica, that President Trump's whole philosophy on politics is not about being right or wrong. It's about entertaining the crowd. And so what he's doing, whether it's Mueller, whether it's talking about his cabinet, he's trying to distract us from what's actually going on within that administration.
But if you're John Kelly, that doesn't make you feel very good, does it?
It probably doesn't. But you know who it probably does make feel good is Mike Pence, because he's waiting in the wings, and I know he's ready for the big administration shakeup that may be coming after Mueller, and if Mueller is allowed to do his job like it's intended.
So Jack, you know, is the president kind of giving signals that there is going to be a significant shakeup and that would involve his chief of staff?
I think he is, because I think you phrased it right. It was a lukewarm endorsement. He did say that on Secretary Nelson that he wished that she was tougher, and the border, as you know, is very frustrating to all parties, to all presidents, so dealing with it is difficult. But when he says he wants her to be tougher, and you got that caravan pending down, I think there's a clear signal there. I think on John Kelly, what he has done has been great in terms of bringing an order to the White House, but I know these are burnout jobs. They're really, for what their responsibilities are, they're very low-paying jobs, and they're 70-hour-a-week, grueling work schedule. So I think it's sort of natural for people to maybe mutually agree to move on after a two-year mark.
Although the president wasn't very specific about those fine qualities, those attributes, except that yeah, he works hard. It seemed like he either was reticent about answering the question or struggling with answering the question. How did you see it, Jack?
Well, I think, from an outside standpoint, that compared to Reince Priebus, who did a good job but also sort of got things going, that I think General Kelly has brought a lot of stability and maturity and the old term gravitas to the White House, and it's something that has been needed. Part of the process is to move on to another version, and that is very possible. I know the name Nick Ayers, who is the Vice President's Chief of Staff, his name gets batted around. And he's a very capable young guy who can put in the 80-hour work week if necessary. And I'm not saying General Kelly hasn't, but if General Kelly chooses to depart, he certainly has earned that right after such a long, distinguished career.
Okay, and then a week after, Veterans Day weekend, and the president, skipping a visit to Arlington when he came back from Paris, he actually made a very rare expression of regret in that interview on Fox News today. Listen.
I should have done that. I was extremely busy on calls for the country. We did a lot of calling, as you know.
But this is Veterans Day.
I probably, in retrospect, I should have, and I did last year, and I will virtually every year. But we had come in very late at night, and I had just left literally the American Cemetery in Paris, and I really probably assumed that was fine. And I was extremely busy because of affairs of state, doing other things.
So, Kevin, how would that explanation sit with vets?
Well, first off, I think it's amusing that the congressman put the words maturity and White House, in regards to this White House, in the same sentence. But on the veterans thing, I mean, you played that soundbite, and right after that, he went after Admiral McCraven, and in a vicious,
who oversaw
incorrect,
the operation of killing Osama bin Laden. Yes, go ahead.
Correct. And in Donald Trump's mind, I'm sure he's done more for the military than anyone ever. I don't know, Dwight Eisenhower, George Washington. I'm sure there's other examples that the congressman can think of. But this is just another example of him not self-reflecting. He has no self-reflection. He's trying to entertain the crowd and distract away because he pivoted immediately to an incorrect, inappropriate attack on a former Navy SEAL, someone who led the charge to kill
Kevin, accept his apology.
Osama bin Laden.
But Kevin, accept his apology. I mean, every now and then admit, hey, you know what? The president sincerely apologized for it. And by the way, I agree that he should have gone there on Veterans Day. I was in office for 22 years, represented 5 military installations. I always did it. It's fundamental for politicians. In fact, many years ago, I was visiting troops in Kosovo with President Clinton, right before Thanksgiving, and I asked him why we did not stay for Thanksgiving, and he said philosophically the American president should be home on Thanksgiving. So there
But
are
Jack, real
certain
quick, you know,
protocols.
accepting his apology, but you know, the president professes to be, you know, all about the military, all about the vets, and these are now at least, you know, 3 examples in which he's received criticism of as it pertains to vets, the U.S. military, in just 1 week.
But when you think about what he, and I do disagree with Kevin, his veteran reform bills have been incredible. I've never seen anything like it in the decades that I've been in Washington, and they had huge bipartisan support. Veterans now have more benefits. They have more health care options than they ever had. In terms of military spending, it was hollowed out under President Obama, and he has refunded the military. Well, that's the knock for those of us who actually served on the committee.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Jack Kingston, Kevin Cate, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frederica.
Thanks, Fred.
All right, still much more straight ahead.